YT Izzo. This is the YT Izzo Uncaged 11, probably the best spec trail bike I've ever seen in my life. Hear me out. I've been riding my YT Izzo for almost a year now. I have put more miles and elevation on this bike than any other bike I've ever ridden. I mean, the Izzo was made to be a light, agile bike that could just do anything uphill. And right off the bat, I got the new RockShox suspension on it. I put Noble carbon wheels on it, Cane Creek E-wings, XX1 cassette and derailleur, and then switched that to the T-type transmission. With all the parts that I put onto this bike to make it better and more efficient, it's right up there with the Uncaged 11. But the biggest question is, was it worth it? Was it worth spending all the money to make this trail bike at a great price already into an expensive top spec bike? Absolutely. This bike has made me a better rider 100%. Uncaged 11. All right, let's go over to YT's website and check this thing out and see what we got going on here. This is the Izzo Uncaged 11. This bike is coming in at 130 millimeters of travel in the rear, 140 millimeters of travel in the front, spec'd out for a great trail bike. I mean, this thing is top tier, no joke. It has the GX transmission, it has Olin suspension front and rear, carbon wheels by Crank Brothers, and it's also coming with the electronic dropper post, which is pretty money. Edward. I'm always talking about how I think the YT Izzo is one of the best bikes I've ever ridden. I'm always showcasing this bike on my Instagram and my YouTube. Well, a friend of mine was in the market of getting a new bike, and he really wanted to try out the Izzo. So let's hear what he had to say about it.
My name is Edward. I am an author, illustrator, game designer, animator. I've been riding bikes since I was 6, started BMX racing when I was 7, started mountain biking when I was probably 15. I'm 37 now. And yeah, I love riding bikes every day, and I'm excited to ride a bike that's comparable to a lot of these $10,000 bikes at a reasonable price point. When you're looking at a certain bike at a certain level, especially in the $10,000 and then you go $5,000 and like $2,500 level, it comes with certain parts, and this bike was priced at a $5,000 level, and it came with parts that were on a $10,000 bike. So it was like a no-brainer. Especially when you're compared to other brands. My first thoughts on the YT Izzo were, okay, it has 140 up front, 130 in the back. It's designed to be an all-around trail bike, but also exceptional at climbing. And that's what I look for when I ride. I do a lot of miles. Usually I do 30 miles with 2,800 feet, 3,000 feet of climbing. So I was looking at those bikes in that range. I definitely wanted something on the lighter side. So this bike at 30 pounds, fully gassed up with, you know, tubes and pedals is amazing. You know, my expectations of the YT Izzo were, I was kind of nervous. I've always ridden other big brands, and I was like, okay, I hope the bike's quality. I hope the paint looks great. I hope the parts, you know, I hope it's put together well, and it exceeded all my expectations. I mean, just the way the bike was shipped, and then when I started taking it out of the box, it was primo. And then you start looking at the paint, it's amazing. It's better than a lot of these other bikes I've had. I won't name names. And the parts, everything was put on nice. It's very professional. I'm excited. So the bike has satisfied me overall. I'm at about 65 miles. I got it about less than a week ago, about 5,000 feet of climbing. And I would definitely say that it's, and I don't want to sound like I'm kissing butt here, but it's probably the nicest bike I've ever ridden. Just because the suspension, I feel like they were very thoughtful. I feel like whoever designed this bike at the round table of YT, whoever that is, they really thought of the parts they were putting on it. Yeah, it's amazing. YT's price points, they're amazing, obviously, right? When you look at it and you see what wheels come on the bike, what drivetrain, even the handlebars. These are things that I don't want to go for a $8,000, $10,000 bike. I usually get the $5,000, $4,500 other brand bike, and then I put carbon wheels on it, I put carbon bars on it, I change out the seat, I change out the grips. I feel like this bike at the price point came with things that, you know, sometimes they don't make sense, right? You're looking at all these nice parts on this bike for this price point, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, how could they get this bike as nice as it is compared to these other brands? Definitely making me rethink what I'll buy in the future, whether it's a gravel bike or an enduro bike. This bike is for someone who definitely likes to go out and get rowdy on the trails. It climbs well, it climbs up fire roads really well, it descends really well. I almost feel like the bike rides like it has 150 in the front, 150 in the back. And that's amazing at that weight level at 30 pounds. This is usually a 35-pound bike that gets that type of travel. I'm used to riding road and gravel every other day, and you know, I switch between road and I switch between gravel, and I usually do mountain on the weekends, and I would say I could probably ride this bike every day.
Overall, well, I have to agree with Edward. This is a bike you can ride every day. It works for most applications. I mean, it's light, it's nimble, you can take it on some jump lines, you can pedal uphill with it, and it can handle downhill pretty good considering it's a very short travel bike. I live in northern Arizona, and pretty much everything I've thrown at this bike, it can handle it pretty good. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I still have my YT Capra Enduro bike because that's for the really gnarly stuff. I would never take this bike on a major downhill jump line at a bike park because that's not what the YT Izzo was built for. It was built to be a single track slayer, and it does its job very well, and I couldn't be happier. So if you want a sick trail bike, I recommend taking a look at the YT Izzo.